These animals come from sections of the river or areas where the pH can often drop to 4.0 or below. A pH of 4 is 1,000 times more acidic than a pH of 7. Now, if you were to put this animal in a pH of 8, that's 10,000 times more acidic than the environment that it comes from. Think about it. A pH of 4 is 10,000 times more acidic than a pH of 8. So if you were to take this animal, which comes from a pH of 4.0, and put it into an environment where the pH is 8.0, chances are it's not going to do well, right? You want to keep them below 6.5 pH so they're not a beginner's or intermediate level fish. I have been in the hobby for 37 years, okay? I don't struggle with a lot of fish, and I don't suffer losses. I'm not good with losses. This has been really difficult. You guys didn't get a video from me for the last 2 days because this has been going on, okay? I'm an advanced fish keeper, and if I'm having this much trouble knowing the water parameters these guys come from, talking to the master himself, Heiko Blair, who actually has gone to the environment that they come from and collected the fish, having all of his wisdom and knowledge poured onto me to use that to set up this environment for them, and then still, after all of that, have to suffer losses, I would say that if you're an inexperienced fish keeper, you're only going to bring these fish home to flush them down your toilet the next day. So if you're not experienced with keeping very delicate, very delicate, I would say, and sensitive, fragile fish, I would recommend not to get these. So do not buy these fish unless you are a very experienced fish keeper with lots of experience and the right environment, because you cannot, it doesn't matter how much experience a person has, if you don't have the right environment, you cannot keep them, okay? So having said that, what type of environment am I using right now in this tank? What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to Malik's Water Garden. Today's going to be a very special video because I'm sitting in front of my green neon Tetra tank. So these fish are called Paracheirodon simulans. Thank you so much for Heiko Blair, the master, to helping me identify them correctly when I got them in initially. And also thank you so much, Heiko, for letting me use some of the footage from your last expedition to the region where these fish are collected. So watch till the end, guys and girls. You will see videos of their natural habitat, of where they come from, filmed by the master himself, Heiko Blair. Thank you so much. Now, having said that, I also want to give a huge thank you to Jason at Phil Can's Fish. These fish actually belong to Jason. They are not my fish. They are his fish. They are only in my facility because they were a little bit fragile, and he decided that it's better off that he would split the group and give me half, and he would keep half and see who would be doing a better job. And like, for example, if the fish are doing better in my facility, he would probably end up bringing the rest. They are not doing too well yet. These ones here are doing great, but I did suffer quite a bit of losses. These are the ones I lost today. This is the ones that I lost in transport yesterday. So we're going to be looking in detail on how we can keep these guys alive and what you as an aquarist can do to be successful at keeping green neon tetras. Having said that, I'm going to say the first thing I'm going to say is there's not a lot of information available online about these guys, and also the information that is available is quite misleading. For example, there's a video online that's quite popular about them, probably the only video that is available so far, and it talks about how you can keep these guys in a pH of 8.0. Now, fish can tolerate higher pHs once they are properly acclimatized. We are going to be looking in detail about pH in upcoming videos for the zebra pleco breeding series. So stay tuned and subscribe down below and hit that notification icon so you get updated when those videos, as well as many videos that get uploaded. For this purpose of this video, I'm just going to explain pH in general terms, just as how Dr. Thomas explained this to me a few days ago. pH is like this, and I've learned this in the past as well in basic science. So the way pH works is a pH of 6.0 is 10 times more acidic than a pH of 7.0. So if you have a pH of 5.0, that's 100 times more acidic than a pH of 7.0. These animals come from sections of the river or areas where the pH can often drop to 4.0 or below. A pH of 4 is 1,000 times more acidic than a pH of 7. Now, if you were to put this animal in a pH of 8, that's 10,000 times more acidic than the environment that it comes from. Think about it. A pH of 4 is 10,000 times more acidic than a pH of 8. So if you were to take this animal, which comes from a pH of 4.0, and put it into an environment where the pH is 8.0, chances are it's not going to do well, right? So this is something to really consider. And then when you go to the pet store, chances are the pet store has not quarantined this type of fish. They don't have the resources, or the fish do not live long enough for them to quarantine and to get them out onto the floor. There are not a lot of ethical pet stores that would do that for you. So what you're going to end up doing is you're going to go to the pet store, you're going to see fish that arrived last night. Like these ones here arrived yesterday at 4 p.m. They've been in my care for 24 hours. They look great. They're all doing well, right? Not all of them are doing well. So what ends up happening is people will see this, they will purchase these, and they will take them home. And then they will die in your tanks. They will die over the next couple of days to weeks. And chances are you're going to end up losing all these fish, as well as if you didn't quarantine the fish that you took home, you might end up losing some of the fish that are in your tank, because these guys, as they're dying, they will get diseases and they will transmit diseases to the rest of your fish tank, right? There's a lot of necrosis, there's a lot of flesh-eating diseases and stuff like that could come with these guys, especially from the wild ones. So you have to really be careful that you're not bringing that type of stuff and putting directly into your tank. So quarantine your fish. Secondarily, you cannot keep these fish in an environment that is above 6.5 pH. I was going to say 7, but even 7. My friend's tanks, he has them at 7. When they come from the wild, they're not going to do good in a tank that's 7.0 pH. You need to have them in a pH of 5.5 or between 6.5 and 5.5. Anything above 6.5, they will die. So you really have to pay attention to that. Also, they are not the most robust fish when it comes. They've gone through quite a bit to get to this point. They are very hardy fish when it comes down to it. Like a little guy like this, you can pull him out of the tank and they will jump and do all kinds of stuff, you know, like it'll be like a regular fish. But the problem is they are very small. Any little thing, they do carry a lot of wounds at this point by being in nets, being transported, being in bags, being shipped, transshipped, caught again, moved back, whatever. So they are going to be susceptible to all kinds of things. Now, having said that, if you take an animal that has already been stressed through all these other things and you put them in a pH that is improper than what they're used to, they're not going to do well. So having these animals quarantined for a few months, once they are adjusted to your pH, after that they can live in higher pH. I've seen them at 7.4 pH. I've kept them here in my fish room at 7.4 pH. So that is something I can say that they can do after they have been acclimatized over a period of time. This is the 5th time I'm getting these fish, and I've been quite successful with varying degrees of success over the last 4 attempts. And the last one actually was the least successful. I bought 75 of them. And I put them in this particular tank, and there was 25 in here, so there was a little bit over 100 fish. And within a week, I lost majority of them. I was left with 9 fish, and not even the ones that I had, because the ones that came in got sick and gave diseases to the ones that were in my tank. Now, this is a real possibility for a lot of you guys, so really be careful and pay attention to getting these fish from a reputable source, and also make sure that they have been quarantined, and that you do quarantine them once you get them as well. Having said that, they are quite hardy once you do meet those requirements. Once the pH is met, like I have my breeding groups, I have 2 separate breeding groups, and I'll put some B-roll footage of one of the breeding groups actually, and I've had them for a few years now, and they're the second group that I purchased, and I didn't suffer any losses, and they all did great. I believe they are spawning. There's a lot of little guys that show up every once in a while, and I never see tiny ones, but I do see like this size ones that will pop up, and my adults are about an inch and change now. So like the little small ones, I'm surmising that they are being born in the tank that they're in, and it's a heavily planted 10-gallon. The pH in there is about 4.5, and I don't even do water changes really. I only do like a once every 2 months. I do a 25 to 40% water change depending on the nitrate concentrations, but because it's heavily planted and has a huge substrate bed and has aquarium soil that is active aquarium soil, and so because of all these things, the water doesn't get too bad in there, and they do really well. So I'm really happy about those groups. And the second group I had was also doing well. and they were in this tank. And when I brought the fish last year, I bought 75 of them, and I wanted to put them in with the original group, the second group that I had, because I wanted the fish to be comfortable, and I didn't really want to spend a second tank for quarantining them. And so I paid for that mistake with the life of all 75 of the fish that I brought in, plus majority of the fish that I had already in quarantine that are in my second breeding group, as well as some of the other fish, the guppies and stuff that were in this tank, and also my breeding group of autosynclus catfish that were also in this tank. So quarantining your fish is quite important, and I cannot stress this any more than this. I mean, if you don't quarantine, you're gonna lose fish. Having said that, these guys are not stable yet. This is what I lost today. Jason, if you are watching, I am sorry. There's about 50 of them in here. This is what I lost yesterday. I counted 25. So there's 75 dead fish. There's a few more that are in here that are dead. The remaining ones are doing well. There are some lesions here and there that the fish have. So the ones that do exhibit any physical signs of disease or issues, like this guy here, I'm probably going to remove after making the video, and I'm moving them into another tank in the back that doesn't have any fish in it, but the same pH, same TDS, and everything like that, so that if they do make it, that's fine, but I'm not hopeful for the ones that have any lesions or anything. It's kind of cruel, but to save the rest of these 500 fish, you kind of have to do that. It doesn't look like there's 500. There's actually a bit more right now, maybe 500 or 600 that I got, and then minus the ones that I lost, but there's still quite a large amount. There's a huge school in the back. You can see they're in the shaded area. So I'll do some B-roll footage for you guys after this so you can see them more and better and stuff, and I'll put them throughout the video. Now, having said that, I am feeding them Dr. Basilier's Biofish Food Nano Baby Formula. This stuff is great. It's really tiny. It's like powder, and they seem to enjoy it quite a bit. And I'm also feeding them angelfins.ca Golden Pearls 300 to 500 microns, and Golden Pearls 100 to 200 microns, which is pretty much something that these guys seem to accept quite easily compared to the 300 to 500 microns, because this is a smaller grain size and they are small fish. So really pay attention to feeding wise. You want to feed them really small food that they can eat. I'm feeding them this, so you can see like there. And okay, are we back in focus? Yes. Okay. And they are eating that quite readily, and I'm feeding them about 7-8 times a day. They are small fish, and you do not want to get them to go hungry, because that can increase the chance of fatalities, because if they are stressed already and the fish is hungry and it's not getting fed enough, they could die from all those things, plus the stress that they're already incurring by being transported and being in different water and whatnot. Having said that, you want to keep them below 6.5 pH, so they're not a beginners or intermediate level fish. I have been in the hobby for 37 years, okay? I don't struggle with a lot of fish, and I don't suffer losses. I'm not good with losses. This has been really difficult. You guys didn't get a video from me for the last 2 days because this has been going on, okay? I'm an advanced fish keeper, and if I'm having this much trouble knowing the water parameters these guys come from, talking to the master himself, Heiko Blair, who actually has gone to the environment that they come from and collected the fish, having all of his wisdom and knowledge poured onto me to use that to set up this environment for them, and then still, after all of that, have to suffer losses, I would say that if you're an inexperienced fish keeper, you're only going to bring these fish home to flush them down your toilet the next day. So if you're not experienced with keeping very delicate, very delicate, I would say, and sensitive, fragile fish, I would recommend not to get these. So do not buy these fish unless you are a very experienced fish keeper with lots of experience and the right environment, because you cannot, it doesn't matter how much experience a person has, if you don't have the right environment, you cannot keep them. Okay, so having said that, what type of environment am I using right now in this tank? I'm using Tropica aquarium substrate that lowers the pH, so the pH often buffers down to 5.5 in this tank, or a little bit lower, and that seems to be the range where these guys do well. So a planted ADA aqua soil tank or Fluos stratum tank, shrimp tanks, they're great for those. So if you are a shrimp keeper and you're keeping Caridina shrimp, then yeah, you can keep these in your Carolina shrimp tank. Okay, so the main requirements are low TDS, low pH, lots of food. They do like it a little bit warm. They can tolerate up to 30 degrees Celsius or even a little bit warmer because they do come from marshes and the temperature does fluctuate quite a bit. But for optimal health, I would say anywhere between 75 and 85 degrees Fahrenheit would be ideal. So that would be about 25 degrees Celsius to about 29 degrees Celsius. And you can let it go up or down a little bit beyond that once the fish are stable for short periods of time, but overall I would not let the temperature drop below 75 degrees Fahrenheit or go above 85 degrees Fahrenheit. I would say a comfortable 80 degrees is where you would want to keep them. This tank right now is at about 81.5 degrees Fahrenheit, and they seem to be doing well, showing natural signs of health and life. Now, having said that, this does not mean these animals are stable. I got all of these yesterday. We're doing the exact same thing. So throughout the next day, I might lose some more, not as much as this, I would hope. I have put antibiotics in here, and I am hoping that that would stop secondary infections. And there seems to be signs that they are slowing down in terms of infections, and these ones that I have now are so far so good. Fingers crossed. But having said that, I mean, I was feeling that way this morning when I went to bed. I didn't sleep last night. I haven't slept for like a day and a half, and finally I was so tired I went to bed. And none of these fish were dead at the time. These were all alive when I went to bed. I woke up 6 hours later, and there you go, right? And then so I've spent the last hour or so removing all the dead ones and removing any of the ones that have lesions and medicating them with antibiotics. I will be doing another water change in the next little bit. And so we will be looking at these in detail in the coming days and months. So subscribe down below and hit that notification icon so you get updated. I just want to make this video now because if more losses happen, I will be too devastated that I probably wouldn't end up making this video, and you would lose out on the information that I have on them, and also the caring and maintenance, the basic general care, because I believe that the information that is available online on these guys right now is quite misleading. And one of the people said that they keep them at 8.0 pH. I've seen koi fish in saltwater tanks. I've seen mollies in saltwater tanks and saltwater fish in brackish water tanks and whatever. Does that mean the animal is thriving? No. Does that mean the animal is going to live in that long term? No. That means that the animal, you can put it in the tank and it wouldn't die immediately. It would die 2 days later or a week later or a month later. So having said that, they can adjust over a very long period of time in the right system. So like, for example, if I were to move these guys into my tap water, what I would be doing is I would be doing a 25 to 30% water change every other day with my higher pH water in here, and slowly bringing up the pH. I actually have Ultim Angels that I am keeping in tap water right now, and they were doing really badly when they first came in. There's actually a new group that came in that I'll be getting to do the exact same thing. So you'll see how I transition fish that are sensitive and delicate from acidic water to our own water. Now, if that has not happened, which is most likely the case for fish that you will see in a pet store, you are going to be bringing fish home that are probably going to die in your high pH system. So really pay attention to that. And if you don't have a planted tank with low TDS, low pH, I would recommend staying away from these guys, because just because they are not an easy fish to keep, they are not a beginner's fish, they're probably one of the most advanced. They're harder than zebra plecos, they're harder than your discus, they're harder than Ultim Angels. They're probably in the same caliber as Ultim Angels. I would say Ultim Angels are only a little bit more easy than these guys, just because they're a little bit larger, so you can actually visibly see if something is wrong. Like, for example, if it has a wound or a lesion or anything, if it starts developing fin rot, you can start seeing it before, compared to these guys. You wouldn't see anything until the fish is pretty much ready to die. So that's another thing to pay attention to. They are very delicate, and I'm just going to keep reiterating that. I just really hate when people end up buying fish that they don't know how to take care of, and they think that it's the fish's fault somehow, and that the fish usually die. Fish are hard to keep. No, they're not. Fish are not hard to keep. If you provide the right environment, fish are quite easy to keep. So now, I know a lot of people probably would hate me at this point, but every fish that dies in our care, all of these fish are my fault. 75 dead. there's 25 in this plate, and there's at least 50 in this. So, you know, I'm responsible for that, right? Advanced fish keeper. So if I'm having this type of trouble, I mean, I would assume somebody that has no idea what they're doing would have a lot more trouble. The reason I'm actually having somewhat of a success and I'm keeping these guys that are here alive right now is because I've had these for a few years. I've gone through this before. Like the first 2 times I was quite lucky because the fish that I got, the first time I was quite lucky because the fish that I got were the survivors of like out of like 1,000. So a box of 1,000 fish came in. They were put into Toronto tap water, and about 100 fish survived the entire quarantine process. Okay, and my friend who was good, like my friend who's a pet store owner, who's an ethical pet store owner, does not sell his fish until the fish are stable. Like Jason here, who does not want to sell any of these fish until they're stable, because you don't want people to take fish home that are going to die. I didn't pay any money for these. These are here as an effort to keep them alive. So essentially, the first time I got them, the fish that were there, that were alive, were ones that adjusted to our pH, right? So I brought them home. I had a fluol stratum planted tank. The pH was like about 7.0. I put them in. It was 8 or 10. They did great. Second time, same thing. My pH in the tanks was similar to ADA Aquasoil. It's a Chinese brand ADA soil. It's a knockoff, but it's a better quality soil. It lasts longer and doesn't become into mush after 2 years. So it's a higher quality product, and I use it. It's a little bit cheaper than ADA. It's about $5 cheaper per bag. Now that brings my pH down to about 5.0, sometimes a little bit lower. So my breeding group is in one of those tanks. I'll put some B-roll footage for you guys, and they did great. The third group I got also did great. They were in this tank with the Tropica soil. And the fourth group I got was the one I got last year, which you guys are supposed to get a video about. If you are my subscriber from 2019, so about 100 of you guys will remember this, that I was supposed to make a video on these, and I didn't make the video because I was so devastated, because I ended up losing almost every single fish. Out of 100 fish, I was left with 9, okay? And also the original group that was in the tank, this tank, they were all wiped out with whatever diseases the new fish came in. So this is why I always tell you guys, please quarantine your fish. I mean, I've been in this hobby for such a long time, and seeing the amount of things that can go wrong if you don't quarantine properly, it's just not worth it. So these guys are in quarantine. We're going to be looking at that in upcoming videos. I just want to get this video done for you guys as a preliminary look at the fish. We will be doing a lot more in-depth looks, and this is what I'm feeding them right now. I'm feeding them Dr. Basileir's nano fish food, and not a paid advertisement. I really like this stuff, and I just opened this bottle for them, and it's literally just powdered food, and you have to feed them quite often. I feed these guys about 5 to 6 times a day, if not more. Every time I'm sitting in front of the tank, actually. And I'm also feeding them this stuff right here, which is Golden Prost, 100 to 200 microns, and a little bit of Golden Prost, 300 to 500 microns for some of the larger ones, but they are quite small, and they do require microscopic food. Now we are going to be looking at more detail on these guys, so stay tuned and subscribe if you haven't. If there's anything you want to learn about them and you want me to cover in detail, please comment below and ask me your questions, and I will happily oblige. And if they do well, I will be making an update video on them really shortly. If they don't do well, don't expect me to make even any videos for you guys for the next couple of days, because I don't do well with death. This is really hard for me to look at. Like I'm not doing well right now about this scenario, okay? But what is keeping me happy right now is that the majority of the fish out of the 500, like almost 500 of them, because I got more than 500. There's like probably 700 or 800 in the bag, and although they don't look like a lot, I counted. There's more than 50 dead ones in this, and there's 25 dead ones on this. 25 fish. It's quite sad actually, because they are quite pretty, and so I don't do well with death. So I might it might be difficult for me to make videos if I do suffer more losses. And but there is another group of these guys that are supposed to come in. They are at Jason's house. Forgive my dog. And so we're deciding to see who can keep them alive, who can keep more alive, and if my system is keeping more fish alive than his, he'll probably end up bringing the rest. And if I'm losing the same amount as him, then he's probably going to keep the rest himself and try his best. So we are doing our best. We are not going to be selling any of these guys to you until they are stable, which is probably another month from now, or 3 weeks. So until then, stay tuned, subscribe down below, hit that notification icon so you get updated when there are updates, as well as many other videos like this get uploaded. I want to give a huge shout out to Heiko Blair, the master himself, for giving me all of his knowledge on these fish, as well as some of the B-roll footage that you are about to see, and you probably saw throughout the video, about their natural habitat where they are collected. Now, having said that, thank you so much, Heiko, for being such a huge inspiration to me, as well as many other fish keepers, and for doing an amazing job that you do into our hobby, and for all the conservation efforts that you do towards saving the rivers and streams and all the different fishes. Thank you so much. And everybody that has watched the video till the end, you guys are all awesome. Thank you so much, and I love you all. I'll see you on the next video. God bless you.